we just hosted our first event in September. And I had a big role in moderating the event and being in front of the room the whole day, up on a stage, interviewing some of the authors that we featured. And what was funny is I still had nerves in the beginning of the day, just like I do every time I'm asked to speak somewhere. But as the day went on, and I'm talking hours into the experience, all of it went away and I became very comfortable. And so I have this theory that if students were asked to teach for an entire day, not just for 5 minutes or 10 minutes in front of a class, but for an entire day, they would reach a place of comfort instead of always flirting with this, like, now I can't sleep, I have to present. They get up, it's terrible for 3 minutes, they sit down, they don't learn anything.
Right.
But if you're up there for a full day, that's when the magic happens from my experience.
Fear stops us from achieving our true greatness. Are you a professional woman who is feeling stuck, unmotivated, or burned out? Are you worried about your wellness? Are you letting fear stop you from crushing your goals? If you answered yes to any or all of these, then this is the podcast for you. Dr. Charmaine Gregory, night shift emergency physician, burnout thriver, and wellness champion, along with everyday heroes just like you, will explore how to face fear in our lives and emerge victoriously.
Hey, thanks for checking out this episode. Be sure to click the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you get notified when the next video comes out. It only takes 2 seconds to make 2 clicks. So let's do it. Let's get back to the video. Hello, Fearless Freedom Tribe. This is Dr. G, and we are back for another exciting episode of the Fearless Freedom with Dr. G podcast. Today we have Nick with us, and Nick's going to tell us all about himself and all of the really cool things that he's up to. Take it away, Nick.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. G. I'm excited to be here. As you mentioned, my name is Nick. My last name is Hutchison. I'm in the Boston, Massachusetts, USA area, and I'm the founder of a company called BookThinkers, where I help authors promote and market their nonfiction books. So I'm a total book nerd. As anybody that could see my background could attest, I've got like 1,000 books behind me. It wasn't always that way, which we could touch on during the interview if you want, Dr. G, but
Sure.
I just wrote my first book as well. So it's called Rise of the Reader, Strategies for Mastering Your Reading Habits and Applying What You Learn. I'm very passionate about helping people implement the information that they learn from these wonderful books on health and fitness, nutrition, finance, business, mental health, psychology, philosophy, and everything in between.
That's awesome. So now you got to tell us. So you just gave us a little bit of and I have a lozenge. So if you hear me switching something around my mouth, that's what's going on. Everybody in the house is sick. But anyway, you mentioned that you weren't always into books. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, so when I was growing up, I was more of the athlete stereotype, not really much of the academic. So you couldn't pay me to read a book when I was growing up. And that sort of behavior, that know-it-all behavior, followed me through most of my college experience as well. But when I was going into my senior year of college, I took an internship at a local software company. And my boss at the time, Kyle, he saw some unfulfilled potential, I think, and he recommended that I start listening to podcasts on my commute. So a show just like this, where a host interviews a series of guests and they talk about what they've done to generate some success, whatever that might mean to them. And so what I noticed very quickly as I started to consume these podcasts was that so many of these successful people gave at least some credit for their success to the books that they were reading. And so I followed the clues. I went to my local Barnes & Noble, and the rest is history.
That's awesome. And then, so what kind of books were you into at first? Were you kind of going by the ones recommended on the podcast, or were you finding if there was any particular genre that attracted you?
Yeah, I mean, I had heard a lot of people talk about the importance of financial literacy. And so that wasn't a subject that I understood very much. I mean, I was a business student that didn't understand money. And so I would always get insecure, kind of, yeah. I would shy away from classroom conversations when it would get brought up and stuff. And, there's kids this is where I'm going to work after school. And this is how much money I'm going to make and all that. And I would just kind of walk the other direction. So I heard a lot of people talking about the importance of financial literacy and about how all of the world's money secrets are right inside of these books. So those were the types of books that I decided to start with. Books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey, The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. So that's where I started.
Oh, those are good ones.
Yeah. What are
Those
some
are
of your
really good
favorite
ones.
books? What are your favorite subjects to read?
Like I have been doing a lot of personal development books like over the last few years, mainly because I had to do some big facing of fears, and that fear was public speaking. And so in order to get myself in a better place for that, I had to do a lot of reading in that regard, like developing a mindset of perseverance, having an abundance mindset. I did actually get into some of those same books that you mentioned, because I started entrepreneurial journey. And so part of that, you kind of have to have some of those elements that are mentioned in each of those books in place. And then I started reading a lot of leadership books. So like the 360-degree leader was an excellent one that I read recently. That's really been very impactful, because I didn't realize that as a leader, really, you need to be able to not only make an impact kind of, I don't want to say below, but like the level below you, if you're the leader, the people who you lead, and then also your colleagues, but then also those above you. So that book had some really neat pearls that have impacted my life, But yeah, I tend to read a lot of personal development.
Yeah, hey, me
Yeah.
too. And just like you, when I was, well, I don't know, I read a little bit of your story. I also had to overcome a lot of public speaking fears and anxieties. When I was young, I was a very poor communicator. I think partly because of the US school system and creating a fear of failure and stuff like that. But yeah, I've done 1,000 things to improve my ability to communicate. And it definitely takes a lot of that perseverance and grit and the willpower to do it too.
Yes. Yes, indeed. For sure. So tell us a little bit more about that, because I'm curious now. So you were you more of an introvert, you'd say, or would you just say that you just were not really in the pathway where you wanted to put yourself out there and kind of fail forward?
I've always considered myself somewhat of an ambivert. I mean, I get
Okay.
energy reading books and nerding out by myself, but I also get energy in crowds when I'm familiar with the people that I'm around. So it depends. I think a lot of my early fears around communication stemmed from a fear of judgment, like insecurities, caring way too much about what other people thought. And so I have memories when I was younger, like they used to read in a circle, right? Every paragraph is the next person in line. And I would
Oh
like
yeah.
get up and go to the bathroom or like skip ahead and read my paragraph over and over and over again, to try to practice it. And I had some presentation horrors when I was in high school. Like
Oh
one time
yeah.
I dropped a bowl of popcorn during a presentation because I was shaking so much, like
Oh
where I
my
was doing a
gosh.
skit in front of a class. And so, but to get over that, like I knew that that was holding me back. So I had a door-to-door sales job for 2 summers, which
Oh,
I
that'll
was
do it.
the worst at. Yeah, I was the worst, but like I through repetition and embracing
Yes.
failure over and over and over, like I improved. Then I took public speaking classes at my college. Then I had a phone sales job. I signed up for Toastmasters, which
Oh,
is like
Toastmasters is excellent.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is. And I read books like Talk Like Ted by Carmine Gallo and How to
Mm-hmm.
Win Friends and Influence People by
Mm-hmm.
who the heck is that by? Dale Carnegie. And
Yeah.
so all sorts of things like that to improve my communication.
No, it's good. You're very articulate, so that must have been nice. I'm curious. I'm always curious when people are at a stage where they feel very comfortable and maybe they still have a little bit of fear, but they are much better in how they're able to articulate their ideas, and just thinking about where they came from. Because you mentioned, that one episode when you were in high school and you were shaking so much that overturned the bowl of popcorn. And for me, I didn't have like something like that, but I had to do a lot of public speaking throughout my career because I was a chief resident during my residency. And so I had to do morning report and I had to like present in front of all these other colleagues. And it was always very nerve-wracking for me. And I would always go through the same ritual. I wouldn't sleep the night before. I would be very sweaty and like anxious. And I would have to really will myself into doing it. And, you go from that state of chaos to, as you go along and you like identify the fact that you need to work on this thing, to the point where you feel actually more comfortable speaking in front of others, because you kind of like, I don't know if you demystify it or something, but you do something where, as you said, you get the repetitions in, that it becomes like breathing instead of this thing that you're constantly thinking about and worrying about. It's more like a natural thing that you can just do. So good on you for getting those sales jobs, because that is by no means like the perfect choice, but it's a perfect choice, but not like the, commonly chosen pathway, because of the fact that you get so many no's with that. But the fact that you're getting those no's, it allows you to figure out, well, okay, how can I tweak it the next time? Or, you become more, you become resilient, because you're like, hey, I got 100 no's today. That's fantastic. Like, that's better than yesterday.
Yeah.
So,
exposure desensitizes you to fears.
Yes.
Right. And so check this out. I'm a college freshman, going into my sophomore year. I'm going to run this house painting business. I have to hire all my friends, and I have to go door to door and sell all of these jobs myself. So they go, they teach you like some sales training. You go back and forth. You like learn a script. So my script was basically knock on a door that needed work done. Hey, my name is Nick. I'm a local college student running a house painting business to help pay for college. I noticed that your house needs painting, and I'd love to come back this weekend and give you a free estimate. Like, that was it. That's all I had to memorize.
Okay.
So the first time I went out, the first door I knocked on, this woman answers the door, and I just said, hey, would you like an estimate? And she was like, who are you and for what? And I had forgotten the whole thing. And I just was so nervous that I didn't speak, and she just shut the door. And my boss, like the guy kind of mentor helping me with it, I turned and I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this. And he's like, yes, you are. Like, let's keep going. So yeah, it was rough. Like, it was not easy for me, but I don't know what it was that like pushed me into it anyway, No,
it's good. It's good. Because that's something that you always utilize. That's a skill, being able, because the thing about it is that if you look at fears, and when people get surveyed about what do they fear the most, they would rather die than speak in public. Literally. It's nuts. It's like, how could the fear of public speaking be higher ranking than the fear of death? It just makes no sense. But it's a real, so if you're able to master that and you're able to use that skill, it's invaluable, because most people don't want to do it.
I think so too. I'll share one more thing with you, because it has come, I've grown a lot, thankfully. So my company, BookThinkers, we just hosted our first event in September, and I had a big role in moderating the event and being in front of the room the whole day, up on a stage, interviewing some of the authors that we featured. And what was funny is I still had nerves in the beginning of the day, just like I do every time I'm asked to speak somewhere. But as the day went on, and I'm talking hours into the experience, all of it went away and I became very comfortable. And so I have this theory that if students were asked to teach for an entire day, not just for 5 minutes or 10 minutes in front of a class, but for an entire day, they would reach a place of comfort instead of always flirting with this, like, now I can't sleep, I have to present. They get up, it's terrible for 3 minutes, they sit down, they don't learn anything.
Right.
But if you're up there for a full day, that's when the magic happens, from my experience.
No, that makes sense. So maybe I don't know how you would even get that into the educators' minds.
I don't know.
No, so but yeah, no, absolutely. That I could see how that could be. And maybe even for the teachers, like brand new teachers coming out, they probably go through the same process, right? The first time they're in the class, they're not too far removed, depending on the age group they're teaching, they're not too far removed in age from the students. And that in and of itself is an obstacle, right? And then, now they're having to like impart knowledge and engage and really help them to grasp the material. That could be pretty nerve-wracking. So, but I'm
Yeah, I
sure they
think
get
so.
more comfortable as time goes by. So no, that's beautiful. I love that observation. So tell us more about the company. So you mentioned a little bit about what the company does. Tell us more about what you're up to now. So you just had an event.
Yeah, so my company, I've got 10 people on my team, and we
Nice.
support about 200 authors a year. So we help authors promote and market their nonfiction books, personal development, all types of personal development books, because my life dramatically changed by reading these books and implementing what I learned, right? A good book condenses decades of somebody else's lived experience and greatest life lessons into days of reading. Like there's no better shortcut than a great book. And so I believe the right book at the right time can change somebody's life. And I started posting about the books I was reading back in 2017, 2018 on social media. And
Yeah.
as the account started to grow, authors were actually reaching out to me and offering to pay me for book reviews, which was like a big surprise. It was really cool. It wasn't the original form of monetization that I had thought about. But I was curious, and I followed the clues. I would ask these authors like, hey, why do you need to sell books? Oh, your book is a business card for your speaking or your coaching or your consulting. Like, that's interesting. So I would help them. And I tried all sorts of things that didn't work, found a few things that did work. And like I said, now today we're helping a lot of people. So yeah, I love helping authors spread the message of their books, because so many cool people learn something very interesting and unique through their own experience, and they want to share it, but nobody buys their book. And that's always a bummer.
That is fantastic. I love it. And I also love how it kind of was like unintended happenstance there, right? Because
it was an accident.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I'm thinking I'm monetizing this way. And then it's like the total opposite of that is what ends up happening, which is really, really cool. And yeah, that's beautiful. And then so now you guys are doing very well, sounds like, because you have a pretty nice sized team and you're helping quite a number of authors each year. And then now you just had your first event. What are you looking at for like the future of the company?
It's a great question. And this will be kind of hard to explain, but vibe with me for a minute. So
yeah.
When you're reading personal development books, you're always looking to get to this place where you enjoy the present moment, right? Like you're removing fears, you're developing skills, you're satisfying curiosities, you're building to a place where you enjoy the present moment. And for the first time, really, I think this year, we achieved that. Like the business is healthy and it's growing. We're 99.9% of the people we work with are super thrilled and satisfied with the work we do. I got married this year. We bought a house last year.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And so it's like you build and you build and you build. And at some point, if you do implement all of the material you're reading, you're supposed to achieve this place where it all works. And I feel like it's working. So when I used to think of like the future of my business, it was always very different than what I had, right? There was always a big gap between here and there. But today, I enjoy the passage of time. And I think about my business through the next couple of years is just like, we're going to grow. And I know that, and I'm not super stressed about it. And I just want to enjoy it. And so, yeah, a bigger version of what I have today, but nothing super crazy or different in mind.
No, that's fantastic. Congratulations again. Marriage is amazing. I always let you know that's a lot of work. And if you remember, a happy wife equals a happy life, you'll be fine.
I just had one of those conversations. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, did you really?
No, it's thankfully great. Not much has changed. I think that's been like the best thing so far is like not too much has changed. We lived together before and it's been good so far.
No, good. Yeah, many happy years. So that's be great. Yeah. So the thing about it is that is a funny thing when you have extrapolated to a certain point and then you've come to the realization when you've gotten to that point for you and then you're just like present. That's pretty awesome. Not everybody gets to that level. So definitely practice gratitude in that regard. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
every day. I'll share a couple gratitude things with you and your
Yeah, go
audience
ahead.
if you're okay with it, because it's one of my favorite words. So when I first got into personal development, gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. So I started journaling 3 things that
Hmm.
I was grateful for every single day. And I started to notice throughout each day that I would be looking for things to express gratitude for so that the next morning I would have something to write about. And so I started looking for it. Like it became a default every single day. And it changed my life so much that I got the numbers 1, 2, and 3 tattooed on my wrist so that
Okay.
every day I can look down and remember, like, okay, I've got to talk about 3 things I'm grateful for. Now, my team, we have a
Yes.
Slack channel. It's like an internal
Yeah.
communication tool. And we have a daily gratitude channel. So everybody on the team writes 3 things they're grateful for. And I also have agradecido, which is gratitude in Spanish, tattooed on my wrist, on the other side of my wrist. So gratitude has been such an important input to my life. And I'll kind of wrap up my tangent by saying this. One of my favorite quotes is from an Indian monk. His name's Gaur Gopal Das, and he says, it's not happy people that are grateful, but grateful people that are happy.
Mm.
So what he's saying is like gratitude is the action that you have to do in order to experience happiness, which is so cool because other people think it's like the other way
Yes.
around.
Yes, indeed. No,
Yeah.
that's I mean, gratitude is a powerful thing. And like you said, it can change your entire perspective. It could change your entire trajectory. It could take you from the very bottom of like you think you've hit rock bottom, and it can actually get you to the apex because you, like you said, you start to look for things. And it's when you start to appreciate those simple things that the bigger things become evident and are gifted to you. So yeah, no, it's great. That is
Yeah.
awesome. And
Yeah.
then so now
Thank
you
you.
got to tell people if there's an author listening who is an author of a nonfiction work and they are looking to work with you or your team, how can they do that?
Book Thinkers is the name of my agency. So bookthinkers.com is the best place to go to check out the services that we offer. And you can also set up a discovery call, learn more, chat with me about what we do. And then for all readers listening as well, Book Thinkers on Instagram. So we post a new book recommendation every day. I think on Instagram right now we're at about 150,000, and we it's a really fun place to meet people too, in like the comment section and talk
Yeah.
about books. It's like, it's totally nerdy, but also very professional at the same time. It's like the best of both worlds.
Fantastic. Yeah, no, good. So they can go to Instagram or they can go to bookthinkers.com. Awesome,
Yes.
awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
And then so now, now you have to tell us like, is there you talked about some of the root fear that you had when you were younger and how you tackled that, which I thought was quite quite ahead of your time because you were in college. So a lot of college kids are not thinking about how to battle their fears aggressively like you did. So that was awesome. So now, as you're moving forward, you're at a good place right now with your business, with your career, with your family. What are some fears that you're now facing?
What are some fears that I'm now facing? Well, I think that the next step for us as a couple is to start a family, which is going to be an entirely different, set of skills that are required, time commitment, focus, energy that needs to be focused on like raising a family. So, it's definitely going to switch things up quite a bit. So that's something that I'm currently working through. But just like I do with every area in my life, when there's a problem or a fear, I know that somebody else has figured it out, right? And they've written about it. And so I can go read those books. So funny enough, last week I bought 3 or 4 books on like pregnancy and early parenting and stuff like that, just so I can understand it
Oh,
better.
good,
Because
good,
I
good.
think that if you do prepare yourself, then you have more certainty, which decreases fear a little bit, right? So that's how I think about it anyway.
Now that's good. I will just say that no matter how many books you read,
Oh, I know.
Your kid is always going to be your kid and going to be unique and not going to follow any of the stuff that the book says.
Oh, I
But you're
know.
correct. It is good to like have a sense of what kind of things to expect with the pregnancy, what kind of things to expect with early childhood. I mean, those when I'm joking about this, I'm not saying that you shouldn't read about it. I'm saying yes, you should. I'm just saying that there are going to be little nuances because there's really no accurate handbook for parenting. Just
Yeah, and
these are the
I've
facts.
had
Because,
like 5 or 6 different friends have kids over the last few years, like their first kid, and
and
it's
what do they
just,
say?
oh yeah, same thing that you're saying. It's all chaotic and there
It's
are no
very
rules and you just figure it out. And then you realize like your parents didn't know anything either.
no,
So
they
then
were
you have more
clueless.
empathy for them. Yeah.
They were
You think when
clueless,
you're a
like their
kid, like
parents
your
were
parents
clueless.
have it all figured out. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know what? It always works out in the end. Because the whole point is that, you have the family because you wanted to have the family, right? And so there's love there. And in the end, that's what's gonna make all the difference. So, and then you also have enough of like you're convicted enough that you're actually wanting to read and learn more about it before you're in the situation, which puts you ahead of a lot of people. So you guys will be fine. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
And just know
I'm
that
really
every kid
excited
is
about it.
different. Okay. So just know that because we have three and they're three very different individuals. So
Yeah, I was just talking with I've got a guy on my team named Luke, and I was just with him the other day. He has 3 young kids, and he was saying the same thing. He's like, all 3 of them are just wildly different. He's like, one needs constructive criticism, one needs positive praise, one needs both. Like it's crazy how it can happen like that.
yeah, yeah. But they're great. They're absolutely great. And they test your patience, they test your fortitude, but they have unconditional love, which is like amazing to me. Like when I just look at that, like, I mean, when do you ever get that unconditional love? It's like, because by the time you become an adult, you're molded and you have your ways about you, but a child is going to give you unconditional love. They just are. And that is just absolutely amazing. So
How
yes.
old are yours? Your 3.
So I have 11, 13, and 15. But at one
And
point, you hear the ages, right? But at one point I had 4 under the age of 4. I mean 3 under the age of 4.
yeah, that is a lot. I
That was
grew up
challenging.
Yeah, I feel bad for my mom sometimes thinking about it because I was one of 4 boys. And so it went 1, 2, 3, skip a year, 4. So at
Wow.
one point like I always think about high school, right? I was a senior, my brother was a junior, another brother was a sophomore, and then one was
Wow.
in 8th grade.
Wow. Yeah, it's rough when you have them close together. When they're little, it's rough, but it actually turns out really well when they're older because then they
Yeah,
have each other and they can, like you and your brothers were able to go through high school together. So that's really good. Because even the brother that's in the 8th grade, you've moved on, but then your younger brothers are there for that brother.
right.
So, it works out really well. It kind of gets tricky when it comes to paying for college for 4 kids at once, but you know, it's a whole other conversation. But yes, no,
Yeah,
that's
no,
good.
I'm
That's good.
excited for it. And the other thing that I dealt with recently was my first book launched on November 1st. So
How
to
did that
go through the
go?
entire process, yeah, I think there was a lot of fear of failure around that because I wanted to test all of our services, right? As an agency, like it's one thing when a client goes through it and they can experience wins or they struggle or whatever, but it's like, I want to see what this feels like and I want to put everything to the test. So yeah, that was hard. It was a couple year project. But it went really well. I was pleasantly surprised, but again, it's because I prepared really far in advance compared to the average author. Most people wait until their book is out and then they realize, whoa, I have to actually sell this thing.
Yes, indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
Congratulations. So is your book on the website?
Yeah, it's on bookthinkers.com. If you go to
Okay.
Amazon or Barnes and Noble or any of those places, just Rise of the Reader: Strategies for Mastering Your Reading Habits and Applying What You Learn. So I help readers, like people who are reading these nonfiction books, actually implement what they're reading, because so many people, they read these books and it goes in one ear and out the other.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, there's so much potential for action, but nobody's taking it.
Well, I think a lot of times people don't journal while they're reading either. They just read the book and like, I read it. Instead of like, really breaking it down and like writing it and then going over that. Like, so it's like kind of like you're dissecting the thing. Most people don't do that. They just kind of read it and like, oh, I didn't really feel a difference. Like, well, you're not gonna feel a difference.
Yeah,
you don't do the
most people are never taught how to do that, but it sounds like, I mean, you went to medical school.
Yeah.
So in medical school, I'm sure you have to learn how to study efficiently, right?
Of course.
Yes. So that's why I think people with a doctor, right? You're like, okay, that person knows how to take notes, but nobody else is taught because nothing else is as difficult, probably.
That's fair. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, there's definitely a big jump between like even the undergraduate situation and the graduate situation, because you'll find people who are in grad school, like they have to be able to dissect content, like they have to be able to apply the content, because if you're getting a PhD, for example, you have to create new content to add to the field. So in order to do that, you have to be able to dissect the content that's already out there and figure out how you're going to add to it. So it's a different level of learning and studying than what you'd find kind of across the board. So yeah, I could see that. I could see that being a little bit different.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. So we've had a really good conversation, and we're at that point in the show where we have our fill in the blank tradition. Are you ready, Nick, for this?
Yes, hit me.
Okay, awesome. All right. The first one is, if I am fearless, I will
Succeed.
Love it. Love it. The next one is, to me, fearless freedom means
Opportunity.
Okay, I love these like succinct responses. They're great.
One word responses.
I love it. It's great. Now I see what you're gonna say for this last one. Okay, my battle cry is.
Yeah, I don't think I'll have a one-word answer for this one. My battle cry is, the right book at the right time can change your life.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your pearls of wisdom with us here at the Fearless Freedom Tribe. We really appreciate it. We're going to be looking out for your book. We're going to be looking out for your services, the authors among us who need to get their word out. And yeah, thanks a lot. And good luck with everything. Success with the family, success with the continued growth of the business, etc.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity today. And good for you for overcoming your fear of public speaking by hosting a podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Fearless Freedom with Dr. G. Again, I'm Dr. G. And if you like this episode, be sure to subscribe so that you can get notified of when the next episode is going to be. And also, I'll catch you next time. Have a great one. Be strong, be brave, and unleash your greatness.